It's week 5 of the 2023 fantasy football season, and I'm going to do a demonstration of all the different things that you can do with your own personalized version of the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin. So first of all, I am in ChatGPT, and I'm also in the version that allows for plugins. I have my FantasyoMatic plugin enabled, and I've created a new conversation, and I said, hey, FantasyoMatic, and what that does is just tell OpenAI that I want to talk to that plugin. Okay, cool. So what can I do with this information? Well, why don't I start off with, how about a start sit for week 5? I'll just type in start sit week 5. So what it's done is written me a start sit article, just like you see on all the other websites, but this one is driven by AI. It's not that amazing that AI can write something. You see that quite a bit in various other places, but this is all from the FantasyoMatic machine learning model. So it gives you insights. It breaks down all the players. You can click over to the FantasyoMatic website if you want to see more information about the players, and it gives you the model confidence and narratives about all of them. It goes through each one of the player positions, gives you all the starts, gives you all the sits, and starts and sits are basically determined by how the matchup adjustment is going to affect a player. It might be a player that's normally good and they maybe are going up against a bad matchup, like a Lamar Jackson. This is a bad matchup for him. You can see that it's a -4 adjustment based on his opponent. It takes into account the opponent, a very sophisticated and intelligent way to determine the strength of a matchup against a certain position, and other things like home and away and surface and all sorts of stuff like that. You can have your own FantasyoMatic ChatGPT start sit experience, but what about if you want to get really personalized? So for example, I'm going to type in here and say, actually, here's my roster. Can you create a custom start sit just for my players? Because let's face it, start sits are cool, but most of the time it's a bunch of players you don't even care about. So what do? You just scroll through the whole article until you find the players that are on your team or your opponent's team. So you know what? Let's just go right to that. How about we just say, here's my roster. Write me a custom start sit article that I care about. You're not going to get that anywhere else at any other fantasy website. All right, let's take a look. So we see that we've got the roster loaded in here, and let's see the custom start sit article that FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin writes for us. Okay, so now it has completed my own personalized start sit. Here's all my players, only the players I care about. It's giving me a breakdown. Oh, got some guys on bye, so I don't want to start them, and telling me who's got good matchup adjustments. You see the green emojis are indicating good and red indicates bad ones. So I get a full breakdown. So the analysis then at the end just says, look, these are the guys you want to start. These are the guys you want to sit. And you know what? You might want to consider these guys because you don't have any other options. Cool. Well, you know what? I'm looking at my tight end. I'm not super happy with my tight end this week. So why don't I go in here and say, hey, FantasyoMatic, I want a better tight end this week. Is there one worth using that's on my waiver? So I literally just put in all the free agent tight ends. Let's see what FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin tells us. Okay, so now it's broken down all those tight ends. It's giving me all of their information for the current week if I'm interested in streaming. And then it gives me a total breakdown on analysis. Now you see all of this is about matchups this week and different things I should be considering. And at the bottom, it basically says, considering the ratings of matchup, Cole Kmet seems to be the best option to pick up for week 5. However, if you're looking for longer term option, you can look at rest of season and playoff ratings as well too. So I could have said something like, which has the best rest of season, and see how if it gives me a different evaluation. And it still tells me that Cole Kmet is the best option. If I say, what about fantasy playoffs? And it still looks like the Cole Kmet option works in all 3 of those categories. So this is just an example of you continuing to have a conversation, not just having the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin just write you something. This is all about having an expert available to you 24/7. And speaking of waivers, let's just say, are any of the players on my waivers worth picking up as well too? All right, here's the full breakdown for my waiver wire. It tells me that some of these players have a bye this week. It gives me some indication of other things like playoff rating and rest of season rating in addition to just this week. And I can just scroll down to the analysis and it tells me everything I need to know about all these players. And it says, considering the ratings and matchup, DJ Chark and Darnell Mooney seem to be the top option to consider. And it gives me reasons why. Very cool. Okay, well now I'm going to start thinking about my matchups. So here's my roster, and then here's my opponent's roster. And I'm going to say, hey, FantasyoMatic, who's got the better chance to win? Let's check it out. So now it's broken down all of the players from my team. It's broken down all the players from my opponent's team. And in case I don't want to have to do the math, it's going to tell me, oh yeah, I got a strong Anthony Richardson, and then he's got a couple other guys. And so anyways, what we think, it seems that I have a slight edge, especially because of one particular player and another guy's not even playing, or so on. So this is really cool. I can drill into this. I can ask specific questions. Hey, I was thinking about starting this player over this player. I can go all sorts of directions with this if I want to. Now, another thing that I can do is, just like a bunch of other websites, I could say, how about some rankings? It will tell you all you need to know about all the different player positions. It can list all the players if you want, or just certain positions buttons if you'd like. And you can see here I have all the information I need to know in a ranking list. I can click through to their profile over on the FantasyoMatic website, but I can see I've got some color coding with the emojis for the highest rated players. It goes all the way down to as far as I want it to. So in this case, I'm not going to go any further. I'm just going to say I want to look at my flex ranking. So how about top 50? And I'm going to say running back wide receivers only. And we see it starts rating our rankings article for us. And here are just the flex or the running back and wide receiver rankings for the week. And what's interesting about some of these guys, like we can see this rookie just kind of came out of nowhere and was amazing. Well, this is where that model comes into play. Like you see here how he's just got the one dot on the model. Well, that means that don't get too crazy about his player rating. He's had like 2 games that are completely off the charts, and take those with a grain of salt. But guys like Christian McCaffrey, we have tons and tons of data on. Those you can really rely on. So this is really a good way to look at this. Here are some more, the wide receiver rankings as well too. So one of the things that is kind of interesting, again, with rankings is all you really care about are where your players are. So I'm going to say, where are my players on the top 50? This way I don't have to scour through the top 50. And we can see here where my wide receivers rank, all sorts of information. One last thing to just kind of have some fun. Let's see what the bold predictions for week 5 are going to be. So here we have all sorts of fun ones. Got some breakouts. This is exactly the nature of bold predictions. So we've got a nice solid 10 bold predictions. It's week 5 and we've demonstrated that the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin can give us start sit articles. It can give us waiver advice. It can give us roster advice. We can actually look at how we're going to do against our opponent. We can do rankings. We can even do a full breakdown on bold predictions. And I can keep coming back to this and having conversations with it and asking it questions 24/7 with my own personalized experience with the FantasyoMatic ChatGPT plugin.